All right, well, I'm going to get ready to get started. Again, my name is Rachel Hill. I'm the Executive Director of Academic Success at Limestone University. I'm going to talk about a little bit about what our setup is, what's worked for us, and kind of talking about how everything has happened this spring. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Awesome. And please feel free to pop in the chat and ask any questions or anything like that. Oh, okay. So there's our awesome school. So you can see a little bit about Limestone. We are located in upstate South Carolina and Gaffney, South Carolina, to be specific. If you've ever been to where we're at, we're known to have a giant peachoid. So it's a giant peach in the sky. You cannot miss it. It's definitely this big thing that we've got here in Gaffney. Limestone University was founded in 1845. We're one of the oldest colleges in South Carolina. And this past July 1st, we actually became Limestone University. So it's really exciting for us. It's just a really big thing that we've got going on. We have about 2,000 students. It may be a little bit more than that. We're broken up between our day program, which is our traditional residential college, an online and evening program. We've got 5 satellites across the state of South Carolina and a pretty robust online program as well. Those are all undergraduate. And then we have our graduate programs. We have an MBA program that's been established here pretty long. And then we, this fall, are opening our new Masters of Social Work program. And I share all this because our office actually serves all of these students and all of these programs. Initially, when we started offering services, we only did it for our day students. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I also wanted you to get to know me. So I'm the Executive Director of Academic Success. I was previously the Coordinator of Academic Success, and I moved into my new role on July 1st, the same day we moved to university. So I lead our Office of Academic Support, and that includes our peer tutoring program, our writing center, our math lab, our testing center, and our academic coaching program. So we are a pretty large office within my division of student success. And we work with all students all year. Like many of you, you probably, some offices kind of get quiet during part of the year. We always are open and we stay busy. I kind of feel like the post office, unless the college is absolutely closed, we are in session. And we do have summer terms that go throughout. So I'm a certified tutor trainer. So I work with our tutors to get them trained to work with a really diverse population. We've got students who are 17, 18, and we have students who are 60. We have students who are here in the US. We have students who are across the US. I even have tutors who are across the world. So we definitely are busy and we serve a great population. And I myself was a tutor. I started tutoring in high school. I was a Spanish tutor. I loved it way more than babysitting. Having 3 younger siblings, babysitting gets old after a while, and I couldn't believe that I could get paid to help students work on homework and talk about school. I thought it was the most amazing job possible. Apparently, I have stayed with it. So I've been in higher ed for about 10 years, and I transitioned after being working at a school district and being a teacher as well. So that's just a little bit about me. So here's our origin story for academic support. We had traditionally been offering in-person tutoring only to our students who are at our main Gaffney campus. We then started working with Upswing to offer online tutoring for those students and our MBA students. Our MBA program is low residency, so I sometimes have someone who could be a student who's transitioned in that program, but we really didn't have the ability to service that program with tutoring, and that was something we wanted to do. So partnering with Upswing allowed us to have tutors for graduate level courses that we wouldn't be able to before. And then I started here in the February of 2018, and then worked with my administration to very quickly decide we wanted to offer tutoring to all of our student populations. And that was part of our institutional push for, we call it One Limestone, but really to really not have students say, you're here, you don't qualify for this, you're here, you don't qualify for that. And knowing that the Upswing platform was robust enough that we could quickly serve all of those students and move into that. So we were really excited to move into that space in the fall of 2018. It was a little bit of a learning curve for us, just some more making sure that those tutors were understood what it's like to work in the online space, and what it's like to work with a very different population. Most of our online and evening are adult students, much older than our students. So working with them to understand the process of tutoring is still the same, and those questions are still the same. It's just maybe someone different who's asking. And also kind of really then our push to make sure tutoring is an andragogical process. You know, we're not here to replace a teacher. And so that was our really big push to move into that online space that we had. And we had success. We started seeing those online and evening students come into that online tutoring. Sometimes we had those on-campus students who may have been, you know, I really need help at 11 o'clock at night on my math project, and I don't have an in-person tutor available. They still had that option. Or if a student was sick, they were like, how can I get help? Well, you can still get help. You know, both of our peer tutors are all online, and we have our Upswing tutors. So we've really been able to solidify that and just really see some impressive growth that I'll talk about a little bit later by partnering with Upswing. So we moved, and that the same year we moved into year-round tutoring. So last summer was our first summer of year-round tutoring. So it was really successful. We were really excited to see that we weren't just offering it during the academic year, that we had the ability to offer students support year-round to all students. It also allowed us to hire graduate students who beforehand really weren't hired to be able to be tutors, but that was a really successful partnership as well, to be able just to bring in more people into that fold. And like I said too about our training, it really was important for us to switch up how we did our training. So we had tutors were meeting with tutors in our online platform. I was able to meet with tutors in the online platform and switch that mode to be a student, which I thought was so helpful. So I could schedule a meeting with them and do training that way, go through what the platform looks like, all of those options, so that when they met with a student, they were incredibly knowledgeable, not only about the content that they needed for the session, but also being able to address, how do I download my notes? How do I share my screen? To make it as easy as possible, so they didn't necessarily see that being in that space was a barrier. It's also worked really well for our students in our, we have our program of LEAP, that's our accessibility program. So being able to meet those students where they are and meeting their needs that they have, being able to schedule them with the same exact tutor, no matter where they're at. So it's been tremendous for us. And then last year, we were able to got the Writing Center on board. And the Writing Center had been using different software with a lot of issues. So not being able to see someone, it was only chat. And we know sometimes when you see something in writing versus seeing, you actually see someone and hear someone, that context matters, especially when we're talking about writing assignments. So we got the Writing Center to join us on board. They jumped in so quickly. They worked really well with our hero, Joey, who I think is doing another session right now. But you know, to tailor and basically provide individualized training for our school. So he met with them and was able to go through all of the training, and they were able to jump in. They've been pretty busy with their online appointments. Their tutors sometimes are more knowledgeable than my tutors have been, and just being able to work with my tutors to say, oh, this is how I do this. This is my experience. So that's been a really good partnership with our writing center. But I think it's just transformed that how much we can offer. I know that our writing center beforehand was having, some attendance issues, that we had a physical space, but people, the online was not offered at the same time that someone could be in the writing center. So there were a lot of ways that this helped to create better attendance in our sessions. So we have more student usage. Students were already familiar with how Upswing worked for peer tutoring, so it made sense that they were then in that fold. So we could meet with a student, we could schedule them with a tutor, we could schedule them with a writing center tutor, all in one session. So really it kind of, on our end of working with students, we were able to triage better, and we were able to get them the services that they needed to work that out for them. And then, like I said, now coming into 2020, 2021, we're all under the same umbrella. We were in the same division, but now being under one office, it allows us to pool some more of those resources together. So we've been growing, and that's really exciting. I think that will probably bring us to about 25 to 30 tutors between writing center and tutoring center. So we're really excited to see that growth, and being able to kind of share more together as well. So we went into, everything was all smooth and wonderful and dreamy, and now we all know this image really well. This is our COVID as of March. So we were online, we were in person, we have a really strong in-person presence. Our online presence was growing, and COVID hit. So we were actually on spring break when they made the decision that we would not be returning. We would completely move to remote instruction. I'm sure many of you were in a very similar position. So some of my students had gone home, and home was very different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and they were completely displaced. So we were working with students to get them books and computers and resources, and triage in a completely different way. I have a lot of tutors who are international students, so that became a little bit more challenging to work with them, and that fear of, well, now no one's here, what am I going to do? What if I need help? How do I help students? So having that online platform was incredible. For probably many of you the same way. I told my boss, it was kind of like turning on a switch. We had trained online. We kind of were prepared for this situation and hope that it never happened. But as soon as it happened, I was able to meet with tutors virtually and say, everything's going to be the same. We're just moving online. And, and then we had handled all of that marketing piece. So communicating to students about moving completely online, handling how we moved our classes. But it was so simple and so easy. And I've had friends at other institutions that talked about moving to Zoom or Teams or WebEx, so many other platforms as kind of a way to just fill in the space, and so many issues with sessions being Zoom bombed, just having to make sure somebody was in the session, trying to have a tutor coordinator move people into breakout rooms. We didn't have to worry about any of that. Everything was done. Our students knew what to do. Our tutors knew what to do, and we were able to just move into that space. So we were able to, there was a continuity of service. Nothing changed. There was no lag. And it was really amazing. So working with other colleagues who just were unable to kind of pick up those pieces, we didn't have to worry about that. So I had a friend who was, I was like, we're using Upswing. Maybe this is like a good solution for you as well. But it worked really well, especially for those international students. I was really worried about how I was going to be able to have students meet with tutors that are while we're all spread out, but it actually worked out really well. One of my tutors in Europe, she's in Sweden, emailed all of her friends and said, hey, if you need a tutor, I'm in Europe, I'm gonna be in your time zone. So being able to designate some of those tutors by area, it really made a huge difference. It made some challenges for me in communication, trying to remember, oh, this student is 6 hours ahead or this student is 3 hours behind, but it worked out really well. And we had some creative problem solving where students who may have met with a tutor where they're in South Carolina on East Coast time, but now their tutor they met with before is in Europe. Well, guess what? We're going to introduce you to a new tutor that may work better in your time zone. So that worked really well. It brought in some new students who we hadn't previously seen before. I think that they got all that communication where they were like, oh, wow, I'm like, this is the time I'm going to need help. And seeing that population change and who needed help. I had some students who reached out to me who never attended tutoring. They're in the honors program. And at this point felt like they just needed some kind of support. So it was really interesting to see some of those regulars return, but all of a sudden, who found us afterwards, and working with the students to find out how did they find us and those experiences that they've had. So that's been a really positive for us. And then some of the challenges we had, obviously with time zone, I think another challenge had was just our students who were displaced because they went home on spring break expecting to come back. And, you know, I don't have my notes, I don't have my books. Working with them in a different way to get them their supplies, having my tutors reach out to them to be able to say, you know, I'm still here, I'm available. And then another challenge we had with some of our tutors, as soon as they went home, I think kind of completely checked out. That may have had some of yours as well, but I had tutors who all of a sudden were, you know, so much was happening that, you know, this was just kind of too much. I think in that kind of hierarchy of needs, this may not have, you know, this was kind of may have been lower on their needs and trying to make sure they were home and they survived. And all of that, but they were really, you know, cognizant about trying to reach out to as many students as possible. But knowing that it was easy to get into an online session, I was able to meet with my tutors. This worked out really well for me. When, especially we were all displaced, to be able to have a space that I knew was safe and I didn't have to worry about something crashing, someone being able to log into our session, even was password protected. This was a safe place for me to meet with my tutors, so that they could actually see me and hear me, and, you know, have a place to check in. I could do that, you know, refresher on everything that we have in the platform. So it was a space that, you know, we kind of ended up using a little bit for that training, but it was, you know, being able to have that guaranteed space, being able to know what time they were available was so much easier than me trying to email and waiting for back and forth. So I want to just like highlight some of the things my students did because this was really cool. I was so excited. This is one of our math tutors, Addison. You can see she's waving there. Being able to, you know, especially she was tutoring for a 300 level calculus class. I have no idea what 300 level calculus looks like, but it became a really big concern as soon as students went online. So being able to work with them and see, you know, so she sent me this and was like, can you figure out what we're doing? I said, absolutely not. I'm not a math tutor, but it was so exciting where she was just like, I can make all the notes in my space. I can show the student how we do the work. The student can work with me to go through all of the steps, and be able to use all the different, it was just, for her, it was just fantastic. Especially for the higher level math where she said they, you know, needing the space to actually work through things, being able to chat as they went through it was really important as well. And then my other tutors, this is one of my tutors, he just graduated, which I'm really sad about. Pierluigi, his name is known as Gigi, tutor extraordinaire. He actually was our outstanding tutor of the year award winner for this year. Our most busy tutor, and somehow during COVID never got less busy. So he was constantly meeting with students. One of the students on there was a student who never went to tutoring until this point, and as soon as we went online, had that panic moment, but we were able to get him into tutoring and made him feel great. The other student is a former tutor, because tutors go to tutoring, as I always encourage people to do. All of a sudden in that moment in time needed tutoring, but he's a former tutor, honors student. So all of a sudden, you know, like I said, students found us. So while we had a decrease in service, we still ended up ahead for the year. Again, I talked about some of the strengths and challenges. I'm trying to see if I've got any other ones that I've had. Yeah, I mean, the most amazing thing was at the end of the year, we still ended up growing our tutoring from the year before. So even through all of this, our students found us. We were able to not have a lag in service. Everything continued as it has through our summer terms and as we gear up for fall. But being able to have that space in Upswing, we didn't have to worry. So it was really that smooth transition for us. And to give you an idea, I've used these past years because these are the years that I've been here, and for most of basically our whole relationship with Upswing, you can see we have grown substantially. So it's 164% growth since we started using Upswing with our tutoring. Before then, it was a spreadsheet. It was just craziness. But this is us being able to offer tutoring to everyone. And you can see between 17, 18, this was only our day students and our MBA. 18, 19, we started offering students tutoring services to all students. So basically doubling our service, students who could receive service. So we've been growing tremendously, which is so exciting. And but just being able to being able to partner with our faculty, hiring more tutors, which is always great. But having that access is everything. And being able to really adapt to it and jump in quickly has been really awesome. So probably like all of you all, I know everyone's probably thinking about fall of 2020. So I can tell you what we are doing as an institution to get ready for that. Our students are returning in August for in-person classes for our traditional residential college. Our online and evening are continuing, same thing with our graduate programs that are both low residency. Our plan is to offer in-person and online tutoring. There'll be discussions with our tutors about our new protocols. So we have an academic success center. We share a space that's shared with the writing center, and it has a little computer lab in it, but we use classrooms for our tutoring. So some of those protocols that we're gonna be implementing are reduction in class size, reduction in the number of people that can use a space, some sanitation guidelines. Right now, we cannot require students to wear masks, but we will be strongly suggesting it and providing materials to our tutors. My mother-in-law is an awesome quilter, so she's been getting lots of mask orders from me for my students. So I'm just trying to kind of do some things, for them to prepare for that. One thing that we are doing, and I'm really excited about, and this is why I have the Krispy Kreme sign up, is the available now for our tutors, so someone could drop in online. So that's my marketing tool, it's the hot now sign. So hopefully a student logs in and says, hey, I really need help right now. Oh, this is Addison. Addison's available right now. I'm gonna jump into that session. So that's kind of my philosophy. That's my take on that. I really think that I'm really excited about that, but that also is a way that I can make sure some of my tutors have some hours available. Knowing that there could be a reduction in service, this is a way that I can make sure they have there have some required work hours. We're also we don't do drop-in tutoring. We do like a group tutoring session, but we also are not doing in this fall, during the fall, just to make sure we're staying within space guidelines and number guidelines of how many people are recommended to be together. So I'm eliminating that and adding these instead. So if you're looking for a way to make sure your students have some of those required hours, this is a really great way to do it. All our tutors, we ask that they have a camera and a mic and for their computer, but we're able to provide that as well. So that lets them be able to stay in their room or in their apartment. So we're kind of helping them stay as safe as possible as well. And then there's going to be additional training for our tutors, our students, faculty, and staff to understand everything is still available. It's, helping them kind of push more to some online options, knowing that our tutors are prepared for that, trusting that our students understand how to use the technology, because it's very simple to go through the platform. And so it's really that sell to our faculty and staff, and that's been a big reason why we've been able to also grow. If we can get faculty on board and they can see, wow, this is amazing, if they have that positive review, they're going to share that with our students. And then our marketing. So Instagram, everything we can do. I did an Instagram takeover in the spring semester. So I was sharing daily tips. We were sharing YouTube videos that we made where I say, this is how to schedule an appointment. This is what the virtual learning classroom looks like. You can do all of these things. Pushing out that. Our students love to see students. So anytime I put out pictures of our tutors or students in tutoring sessions, it was the most liked posts ever. So, push students in those sessions with tutors. And then our email, text, just pushing out as much as we can. We will have stuff on campus as well. So our flyers that are very colorful. I always have pictures of the tutors on there as well. I think it's important that they recognize those people. Sometimes it's, oh, you're in my class with me. That starts that relationship going. We have a lot of athletic teams here as well. So that push into athletics, knowing that you have a teammate, and then just be able to let them know that, there's no difference between the in-person and the online session. It's the same tutoring, and I think getting that message out is really important as well. So I've been talking a lot, so I'm happy to answer any questions, talk about our experiences. I have, any way that I'm sure all of you are probably in a very similar position. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you all.
There's some questions in the group chat.
Oh, let me see if I can see that. I'm going to stop my sharing so I can see that. Awesome.
Yeah,
I couldn't see the chat, so I apologize if I ignored any questions.
I can actually, if it's helpful, I can share with you some of the ones that were coming through.
Yeah.
So you can leave your slides up. So the first one was, how did you become a certified tutor trainer?
Yeah, so I just earned my training certification through the National Tutoring Association. So they have a course that you go through with a series of webinars and assessments. I found it was really helpful. It matched up the tutoring that I had, the training that I had created in-house. So it was just an extension of that, but focuses on tutoring being andragogical, how our brains learn, and that metacognition, ways that we coach and mentor students. So it was really successful. I really enjoyed it. I'm really excited to see how we implement that curriculum in the fall. It gives us a little more, if anyone else has like CRLA or anything like that, it gives us a little more freedom about how much of it can be synchronous versus asynchronous, online. So there is a little more space on that.
Awesome, thanks. That's really helpful. And the second question came from Nina Wilson, who asked, post-COVID, did most of the sync tutoring appointments happen during your typical business hours, or were there students shifting to preferring different times?
So most of our tutoring, I would probably say, happens between 5 and 11 o'clock at night. And the reason for that is to understand kind of that campus makeup. We have, I want to say like 20 athletic teams. So anything that's an athletic, we have a lot of sports. So most of our classes are held between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. After that, students usually have practice, weights training. So we're from about 5 to 11. I would say those hours probably Monday through Thursday, similar Friday, some Saturday, and then Sunday. So once we did go into COVID, we did find more during the day appointments. So because I didn't have practice, I could be available at 2 o'clock. So that shifted as well for our tutors. They were able to adapt and move to some different times. But I would say it pretty much stayed the same with a little bit more in the early afternoon. But they were, I mean, those, you know, if our classes ended at 2 anyways, some of our classes were not synchronous, so they were able to work on that. It was a little more challenging if the tutors were in some very different time zones, but again, that just took creative solution on my part to find out, okay, let me see if I can find another tutor love connection that we can get a good tutor match for you that may be in a bit more appropriate time zone.
Oh, awesome. And then the next question from Jamie McNeil was, do you do individual trainings or group training sessions with your students?
We've done a little bit of both. Since we kind of have rolling applications, so we've had some group sessions and some we do individual. It also depends on the tutor and their usage. So if it's a tutor who has more online usage than in-person usage, I may meet with them more individually to kind of, for them to be more of a master of that online platform. So it just kind of depends. I think for the fall, I'm seeing it's going to be more group. Will it be more in person or online? That is yet to be seen. So I'm imagining we may do some kind of combination.
Okay. And then Carol Griesbach asked the question, do you limit how many hours per week or semester that a student can use Upswing?
We currently do not. Initially, our MBA program told students they only had, I think, maybe 10 hours, or they had a good faith policy of how many hours. So we currently don't. Most of our tutoring is with our peer tutors. So we do have some students who use Upswing tutors, but our peer tutors stay incredibly busy. So most of it is, even if it's online, it's with that peer tutor. So we don't limit it at this time. What's been good is that I've been able to show that data to our administration and say, hey, we're busy and we're popular. We need more money to be able to keep doing this. So, you know, in order to grow, we have to invest. So that's been able to allow me to hire more tutors. Like I said, I've been able to hire graduate students who, you know, that's a population I never would have been able to hire before. And then working in with our new program. So we have a nursing program that's online only. So being able to, you know, try to get a tutor for that nursing program. They're already online. So, you know, really working with those relationships. So we've been able to do that, but we don't limit at this time. And we do have some students who I will say are the most faithful for tutoring. I mean, they're working, I mean, they're probably, some students, I would say between 5 to 10 hours a week. Some students who are, I have to have that 4.0 GPA, under no circumstance am I going to compromise it. And students who just need assistance. And, you know, I have a student who I know they've got 3 math classes for their major. I know as soon as I see them register for that, I'm going to push them towards those tutors. Serving as, and with academic coaching, I see a lot of those students who are looking to improve or maintain that high level. So I'm able to get them into those tutoring sessions and push them for that. and try to create, like I said, those tutor love connections. I think that's so important. Being a tutor myself, you know, there's certain styles that work better. So I try to think that, you know, knowing my tutors and knowing my student and trying to pair them up really well. I have some tutors who have been with me for 3 years because they can get hired as sophomores. And I've seen those, like, their students start with them as a sophomore and they're like getting ready to graduate together. So it's pretty incredible to watch that. We've had a set of tutors who have gotten married, which is just an ultimate super cute romance. You know, it's just been really amazing to watch that and kind of seeing those students, my tutors, grow in the directions they've gone in. So they're in MBA programs, they're in PhD programs, med school. So it's really just really amazing, and being able to, you know, be a reference for them as a supervisor. But it's just been an incredible experience for us.
That's awesome. And you know, certainly kudos to you for all the work that you've done. And we really appreciated just the opportunity to work with you all over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. And it really helped to see things grow there.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing to kind of just see everything kind of, you know, grow. And I'm like, okay, let me limit like what I think is going to possibly happen next year. And then we grow again. So it's just been amazing. And just the level of comfort our students have and the ease of use of the platform makes all the difference. And like I said, once I show faculty, they're like, oh, this is amazing. I'm like, it's so easy. And so being able to get into those classrooms and, you know, some of those faculty who think like, oh, there's no way that this is going to be easy or that tutor is going to be good, and really showing them like, this is your student, you recommended them, it's going to be a good experience, and getting past that stigma that tutoring means, you know, is unable. So yeah, so it's been really good. I'm really excited. I'm, you know, nervous to see what fall looks like, but knowing that I know that we can handle, you know, if we're online the entire time, I know we can handle it. So that gives me some peace of mind as well.
Yeah. And I actually had just one question of my own. Based upon one of your last slides, you were talking about having certain protocols in place. Would you mind sharing what are some of the protocols you guys are trying to implement to make sure that you can support your students while also keeping them safe?
Right. Just extra sanitation. So making sure, I know that we're on campus, making sure that there are like sanitizing wipes in our classrooms, and hand sanitizer. We're going to have places with sneeze guards as well. So we're looking at even in our writing center, which our tutors also use, is having some sneeze guards between students. And then for my students, I'm going to do like a little goodie basket of like some reusable masks, some Clorox wipes, some hand sanitizer, any of that stuff that I can find that I've secretly been hoarding this whole time. And just those things. And then, you know, really talking about that, you know, social distancing, all of those kind of things that we've all heard about, but understanding why we're using rooms the way we are. So where a room where we may have had, you know, in our group tutoring session, there could be 10 students. We're not doing that to make sure that we have enough space. So I'm using extra classrooms so that tutors have, sometimes those two tutors may use a room. I'm making sure if that is the case, that the tutors are able to spread out far enough. And that, do they have a whiteboard if they need it? Or if a tutor is using that classroom while they're having an online session, making sure that they have those resources there too. Because I imagine we'll have students who are on campus who may choose to go to an online session with a peer tutor rather than go to them in person. So things like that. We're still working on some more policies and guidelines. I'm sure all of you are like, yeah, so I'm waiting for my college to say more. But things like that, and just how kind of, how I'm going to interact with tutors as well, thinking about how feasible is a group session in person? Is it only going to be online? Do I have a big enough space? So things like that. So lots of contingencies to plan for, and as someone who's a planner, a little overwhelmed, but you know, trying to kind of give as much grace to all of ourselves as we try to plan for a lot of unknowns.
Gotcha. But yeah, thanks for sharing all that information.
Yeah.
Are there any additional questions that people might have? Perfect. Well, thanks so much again, Rachel.
Yeah.
This was definitely a really good presentation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for your time as well, and just all your contributions.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much. I'm gonna put my email in the chat. If anybody thinks of anything or is looking just to connect to somebody else in a similar situation with organizing tutoring, please feel free to reach out to me.
Perfect. Great. And so it looks like Aziza is going to be hosting the next breakout session just in the next few minutes.
Yep, that's correct. The next one is with myself and Luke from ACPHS. So we'll get that going in just a moment. We have a quick buffer period in between the sessions for everyone to take a quick water break or anything like that. And then we'll go ahead and get started in just about 5 minutes or so. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started now. Share my screen here. Getting to present mode. There we go. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with this next session now. I have the time slightly wrong here, but this is the advising interview with Luke from Albany College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. So I'm going to go through some quick introductions, walk through our guided interview, and then go into our audience Q&A. So first, for everyone who has not met Luke already, Luke is the director for the Center of Student Success at ACPHS. And Luke, I just wanted to give you a chance to say hi real quick.
Yeah, hello everyone. Happy to be here today.
Yeah, awesome. We're really excited to have you. So we're going to dive right into some of the background first. Can you tell us a little bit about what advising currently looks like at ACPHS?
Absolutely. Advising at AC, we take a lot of, we put in a lot of work into our advising system at ACPHS. The Albany College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, the curriculum is very difficult for the students, and we feel that them connecting to class advisors such as ourselves. So in the Center for Student Success, we have class advisors that follow the students from orientation to graduation. So there's always that constant within our office. And then students have faculty advisors in their program, as most do. And then we also have program directors in each program, which also kind of help students through the process and progressing as well. So we have 3 points. We call it the triangle of success, where the student's right in the middle, and they have all these 3 corners, professionals that are there to kind of help them through their journey at ACPHS.
Cool, that's awesome, thank you. So now on the Upswing side, how does your advisors use Upswing, and how do they use it with maybe other systems that are in place at your school?
Right. So, you know, one of the challenges, right, when you have students reaching out to 3 people or 3 different people within the college working with a student, is the communication. Okay. And when we had this first method going, it was a lot of emails back and forth, you know, that kind of thing, which could be kind of cumbersome. So what was nice about Upswing is we were able to utilize the note sessions. So each student obviously has all 3 of their advisors, we'll say, in their Upswing portal, and we can share notes. I can share notes with a faculty advisor and program director, and vice versa. So it really helps us stay on the same page when we're working with students. So if I refer them to their faculty advisor or program director, there's notes in there as to why. So it kind of cuts down on a lot of that emailing back and forth, and I'm sure myself and everyone here would, anytime we can cut back on email and be more productive, it's a good thing. So that that was one of the main things. And also something else that we have is our alert system that we run through Upswing as well, that function. And that also is something that if a student isn't doing well and we want to draw attention to that, we utilize an alert system that goes out to their faculty advisor and program directors as well. So it's just really, really useful for us to kind of keep that communication going and have it all in one place.
Okay, awesome. So how long has the online component been a part of your system?
The online, you mean like doing the notes and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, with Upswing and even potentially prior to Upswing, how long has online been a part of your advising system?
Well, we don't do, well, obviously we're all doing online advising right now.
Yeah.
But the, it varies. When we've only started using it since we've had Upswing. And certainly, we've tried many different, many different approaches to sharing information that really hasn't worked. We've used our CAM system, that kind of thing, and that was very difficult for us to share information. So the online component for Upswing, sharing notes, working in the scheduling, I think it's something that we've been using for about 3 or 4 years. We've been using it longer than the faculty.
Okay.
So last year we had roughly, I don't know the exact number, but right around 35% of our faculty were on Upswing and utilizing Upswing. Now at the end of this year, we were in the high 60s. So we grew quite a bit, and we did a lot of campaigning for that and everything. It fell short of my goal. I told my team at the beginning of the school year that I was expecting at least 100% faculty on Upswing.
At least, wow.
At least, that's right. That's how I started that. Jarrett's mentioning that in the chat. We often joke about that. But I think that's an incredible increase for us.
Yeah.
And I think more and more, especially since the pandemic happened, and we're starting to see the value and the ease that it is to share information on students through this through Upswing.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. So how do you get advisors and students comfortable with meeting online, but not just meeting, but doing all of the scheduling, the notes, the communication, as opposed to in person, which I think a lot of people would think is more comfortable?
Yeah, well, again, we were kind of forced into trying to do that. But I think one of the main things that I do want to talk about is working with the faculty advisors. Utilizing different resources and what have you. And I think one of the big things was the scheduling. The students really enjoy this, how easy it is to schedule appointments with not just advisors, but with tutors, right? Through Upswing. They go on the website, they see an availability, they go on Upswing, they see an availability, they click it, and it's good, right? And then you get reminders, that kind of thing. So one of the struggles that we've had is getting faculty a little bit more comfortable in putting their office hours in Upswing, right? So we do a lot of training for our faculty advisors. We do online trainings. The live trainings don't necessarily, we don't get a huge turnout for those. So what we do is we record modules that faculty can access at any time. And they can, it kind of walks them through how to set up a schedule, how to conduct an online meeting, that kind of thing. So we're always in the process of training. My team has done a great job of providing resources for faculty. But honestly, with students, I mean, this is something that they adapt a little bit quicker to new technology, and they've kind of, they've been okay with it. And from the first day, they have to register on Upswing, and we walk them through it. So, they know as they go through the program that's where they go to set up these appointments. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So obviously, the evident answer to this one is just that everything is forced online. But can you talk a little bit about your internal processes, and how has the pandemic, how has COVID really impacted how you think about advising at ACPHS?
Yeah, so I think something that our office did when this all first started, right? And I'm sure everyone can agree with this. When it first started, we're like, okay, what's going on here? We're trying to, fly an airplane and build it at the same time. Like, what's going on here? However, what we did, and what I think we had a lot of positive results, is that the students were getting through our school, and I'm sure others can relate to this, there was a lot of information that was going out. And I think they were getting a little bit overwhelmed, right? With campus-wide emails about this, about, we had they can opt in for pass-fail. Okay, so what does that mean? So what we decided to do from our office is to reach out to every single student individually, just to kind of connect and let them know that we were here for them. I wasn't sure what that was going to look like, but it had I think had a very positive impact. In fact, our advising numbers for our office went up. It's a busy time
Wow.
anyway towards the end of the semester,
Mhm.
but I think we had an increased amount of appointments, and certainly, I was trying to tell my team to track like the emails back and forth. I mean, that was very difficult. So that's how that really impacted. And we were here, and it was a positive thing, but just to let the students know individually that we were here for them. And then also through Upswing, utilizing notes and everything, it was hard to connect with other people on campus. We're not there, right? So
Yeah.
our program director, Dr. Yeager, goes in and he can see that, oh, okay, Luke's already talked to the student about the implications of maybe taking a pass-fail. So that was one thing that he necessarily didn't have to do, right? He already knew somebody was talking to them and what have you. So I think it helped. It has definitely impacted how we collaborate. Collaborate a little bit more, I think, because,
Wow.
well, there was so many different variables. So we had to make sure that, we were not letting any students, fall through the cracks because they weren't there. So
Yeah.
that was definitely a challenge, but I think we rose to that challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's impressive to see that even when communication seems like it might be a bit harder, to step that up internally to support students is really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing, and just to
Sure.
backtrack, one thing that COVID-19 made me realize, and I think my team too, is that having relying on physical handouts in our office, and I know a lot of schools probably have them, right? We couldn't utilize them, right? So we had to bring so many things online, and we're still going to need to do that too when we go back.
Yeah, absolutely. So knowing what you know now, if you had to do over the spring semester and, make those adjustments, what would you change?
Boy, I think, well, it's funny when this whole when we sent the students home and what have you, and we decided that we're going to go to remote instruction, we just started like our campaign to get more faculty on Upswing. So we actually designed these things that went on their doors, so when they got back they saw like, hey, you should set up your Upswing account, that kind of thing. So a lot of faculty didn't get a chance to see those. They will when they potentially go back, who knows, because they're on their door handles now. But I just wish, and I don't know if I can necessarily change this, but it is so easy to communicate through Upswing that I wish that we would have pressed more to get more faculty on board, to put more information, we get busy, okay? And sometimes I don't update my notes fast enough or what have you. And I wish that that's something that we were on top of. Our notes, information about students, so it could have been a lot more effective, really, when we went into this remote instruction.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And I mean, we still have a bit of uncertainty even for the fall semester. So we can keep kind of applying those changes as we go along.
Absolutely.
So can you talk about what your triangle of success is?
Sure. So there's class advisors, faculty advisors, and program directors. My office, Center for Student Success, that's where all the class advisors are, okay? And we're the, I want to say, the constant for the student. We stay with them. Some of our students change faculty advisors if they change programs, or once they progress into the PharmD program, they'll have a pharmacy practice faculty. So there's some changes on the faculty side. And I really wanted to have a constant for the students. So we're kind of like, if the students don't know where to go, they come to us, that kind of thing. And we track their grades. We just make sure that they are staying on track. Then you have the faculty advisors, who are experts in their field, that kind of thing, can potentially help, obviously, with their studies and what have you. We do a lot of that too. We do more of the coaching side of things, but they're the subject matter experts. And they're also you know, the people that can connect them to career opportunities, that kind of thing, because it's science, so it's very specialized. And then we have the program directors, and really they're the ones that kind of, for, I guess they fix things when things get out of the ordinary, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
you know, if a student fails a class or something like that, we have a very lockstep curriculum at our school. Okay, if a student does fail a class, the program director will work with them for their kind of like their parallel plan, so to speak. But
Hmm.
all of us work together. That's one of the great things about it. There's so many times where we have meetings, you know, the 3 points to kind of, all right, what's the plan that we're going to make about this student? And it can be really, really effective. It can be kind of difficult sometimes when you got 10 students that you need to meet and you're, you know, trying to make
Yeah.
10 meetings, but it's just really good to kind of keep everyone on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. So tying it back to our earlier thoughts of, increasing communication, and having, the notes be more uploaded and constant and whatnot. Um, how would you say that other schools can apply this similar kind of model, even though they may not be particularly in this kind of health sciences arena, to help support their advising?
I just think that, you know, when you have information on students and you're trying to help students, the more you know, the more effective you're going to be in each and every meeting, right?
Yeah.
I know that there were times, you know, before we had this ability to communicate and what have you, or just have notes. I'm going to pick on Dr. Shakerly here because I know she's in the room, in the Zoom room here. But you know, Dr. Shakerly teaches bio, and some students struggle with it, right? It's their first
Hmm.
exam in their first year. So she will tell me, all right, here are the students that I'm worried about, or I can go in and access that. I can put that in a notes, or I can put that in the alerts feature. And then everyone will, the faculty advisor and the program director will know. So they'll already have kind of that piece of information when they go
Hmm.
meet with a student. So not to say that they're going to skip over that, but they're going to know why. All right, what class are you struggling with? Well, they kind of already know. So why are you struggling with bio? And it has been really, really effective. When we did not have that, you know, it was difficult. It might have been an email or something like that. And as we all know, sometimes you can miss an email. This way you
Yeah.
can go onto a student's profile and see any alerts, see any curriculum changes, because we attach those to the alerts. So we can kind of have an idea if their schedule changed. Okay, you know, we're going to get them so they all live in Upswing. So now I can see it, the program
Hmm.
director can see it, and the faculty advisor can see it as well. So it's just really, really helpful for information sharing and helping to retain students, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
we really want to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal. Okay. So you mentioned a little bit about how you kind of look into students' early alerts if
Yep.
they're not doing well in a class or something like that. But can you get a little bit more specific for how you set up your alerts and
Sure.
what kinds of things you use them for?
Yep. So we're going to be using the alert feature, and through Upswing and only through Upswing. So we've kind of had
Yeah.
a transition through our CAM system. We had an early alert, but now
Hmm.
we're going to go completely to Upswing because it's just easier to utilize, and
Okay.
it's all, again, in one place, right?
Yeah.
So we do our early alerts. Here are some of the general ones. Students fail their first exam, we're going to send out an alert to the faculty advisor. And then through that, the program director would also get CC'd on that, just so they kind of have a heads up. And then we'll keep tracking them. And then if a student, you know, if there's 3 or 4 exams in each class that they did not do well on, we'll do a more of an individualized reach out. It won't be necessarily one through Upswing, but again, sometimes those individualized outreaches help. But it's not just for students who fail an exam or if they're struggling in an exam. We're developing what we're going to call fist bumps,
Okay.
which are basically alerts when a student comes off probation, or if a student,
Nice.
we did them for the National Honor Society for pharmacy students. typically they would just get an email, oh, congratulations, you're in this honor society. Now we put it in as an alert. It's not, not really an alert, but we put it in, and then the faculty advisor also sees that same email. So they know that their advisee was inducted into the pharmacy honor society, right? And
Okay,
again,
that's
it just,
awesome.
and it's all there. So maybe if they
Yeah.
missed the email, if they go into that student's profile, they'll also see that when they meet with them.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you have both the challenges and the positive things in there, because I feel like a lot of times when we think about early alerts, it can often just be for the concerns, but it's great to encourage those little wins as well.
Oh yeah, well you've got to. I mean, you got to keep the the motivation high through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we just kind of talked through this because I didn't know that you were going to say this
Yeah,
for
okay.
for early alerts. But is there anything else that you do to have positive reinforcement outside of early alerts?
Well, no, only if we're meeting with the students individually, and we always recognize that you got yourself off probation, or those types of things. So I think, and I think our faculty, a lot of our faculty do a great job of that too. I know if a student maybe struggled on that first exam, but then got 25 points higher on the next one,
Wow.
right? We
Yeah,
try to recognize those when they come in, and sometimes especially our students, they might still be a little bit frustrated because that 25 points higher was still only maybe an 80, right? I mean, I think that's awesome, but they were maybe shooting for a 90, that kind of thing.
Right.
It happens, but you kind of pointed out that, well, you had this significant increase, right? So I think a lot of those happen in like casual conversations, and bringing it into Upswing, having our fist bumps, our positive alerts through that, is going to help it kind of be more of a regular thing, which I'm maybe somebody who doesn't necessarily meet with an advisor regularly is going to get something through Upswing that will hopefully continue to motivate them to do well.
Absolutely. Thanks. So, obviously, everyone's kind of migrating into this online environment. If they did a soft launch in the spring, it's definitely on for the fall for most people,
Yeah.
But it might be new. So what would you recommend other schools consider when they're starting this?
We're starting, when
Online advising, yeah.
yeah, doing online advising. I mean, I think that I've utilized it quite a bit even before this. We have students who go out on rotations, and basically when they're in pharmacy school, they're working for a whole year, 9 to 5, but they still might need some like career advising or just touch base with somebody on campus. And I've always utilized that with them, right? Where office is technically closed, and they could be doing rotations in out of state or what have you, so they can connect through Upswing, which has been great. And especially now, since the students that are going out on rotations now, I think are the first class that we made sign into Upswing, they're all there, they're all on it.
Yeah.
So that's been very useful for, to meet the students' needs in terms of, and I'm not saying that we have to be 24/7 or what have you, but sometimes students can't make it to campus. Obviously they can't now or what have you, but it just kind of helps. It helps to be able to connect with them at different times, right? So that's one of the things that I really value with being able to work with them online. Now I do have to say, Sunday, that kind of thing, no, but if it is Thursday at 5 o'clock, Thursday at 6 o'clock, it's just an excellent way to do that and not necessarily make them come on campus, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. The other one I wanted to ask was more specific to using the Upswing platform for advising. So what are your top tips for getting the most out of the Advise Up module?
Yeah. Notes, definitely keeping up to date on your notes. And I'm awful at this. So when I say it, I got to listen to my own advice here. But yeah, keeping your notes up to date, because a student can walk out of my office and then go meet with somebody else, right, the next day or what have you. Having all that communication out there, and doing it right away, I guess, that kind of thing. I think that's probably the main thing. Also, visiting it.
Mm,
Sometimes when I meet students and it's back to back to back, I don't have time to go in and look at their profile, look to see if they have been utilizing tutoring, all that kind of stuff, right? Gathering that information can be really useful before your appointment. So setting time in your own schedule, even if it's just 10
yeah.
minutes, 5 minutes, it doesn't matter, to just kind of look through that.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I can see how that would definitely just deepen the quality of support that you're able to give to a student if you already have that kind of context.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, now kind of thinking through, I mean, you mentioned looking at has a student gone to tutoring,
Mhm,
versus whatever else other activities that they're doing.
mhm.
Um, I know this is an advising session, but I did want to ask also, on the tutoring side of things, how have you seen tutoring and advising kind of interact, and advising either give a boost to tutoring or vice versa?
Yeah, well, we we have a very robust tutoring program, um, and that's one of our main things, right? When we're
Yeah.
working with students to refer them to tutoring. It's in our office. Tutoring, I don't know if Jarrett's still on here or what have you, but Jarrett runs our tutoring program. And he's
Okay.
also a class advisor. He has a very, very busy job. We all seem to have like two or three
Yeah.
jobs. But yep, he is still here. And so we kind of all work hand in hand because we're all in the same office. So in fact, I worked with the first year students this year. Um, and, you know, that's like one of my first conversations with them is like, have you utilized either our professional tutors or our peer tutors? Make an appointment. And then we also work with them in terms of like strategy on how to actually successfully go through a tutoring program. So we
Mhm.
work very closely together. And boy, I've had days where I think I've referred each student that I met with to a tutor, right? It's almost kind of like
Wow.
on repeat for me. So
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, it's good to hear how those end up being connected for you guys. I'm gonna step back out of our screen share here,
okay.
because I want to open it up to our audience to ask any questions that they may have, or anything like that. And I'm also going to take a quick look in the chat too. But if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, feel free.
Uh,
Okay.
I had a question I wanted to ask. We have found, this is Deanna Carter from West Georgia Technical College in
Hi, Deanna.
the state of Georgia. We have found that a lot of the students are using the messaging
Yep.
since we've gone to the Advise Up. I know you spoke a lot about the value of the notes. And so because everybody can't see the messaging, do you have that going on? And kind of how do you manage
Yeah.
that and keeping track of student contact and that type of thing?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. In fact, that's something that I think just started kind of using when we went to remote instruction. But to give you a perfect example, we had 3 students who, we talked about the triangle success. Everyone was reaching out to these students. Their course instructors were reaching out to these students, and we weren't hearing anything, right? So I tried the messaging system, and 2 out of 3 of them got back to me like right away. Okay.
Well,
Because I think it goes like right to their phone, and obviously, the students, they see it on their phone, they see that text, and they got back to me. So that is something that we just started kind of working with, but I definitely want to do more with it because I do think it is going to be a very effective way to get in touch with students. And it's also nice too, yourself, when you sign up for it, when you're using it, you get an alert on your phone when you have an appointment. So I always like that because it's meetings, appointments, that kind of thing. And when a meeting might be running long or something, you get a text saying that, in a half hour, whatever it is, your appointment's about to start up. So I really like the messaging feature. And I think that's something that we'll start trying to utilize a little bit more moving forward.
awesome. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I see in the chat, Alex just actually asked, what do you think is the biggest challenge that you're going to face when you're moving from CAMS to Upswing?
You only want one, Alex? Come on. I think I think the main thing is, and this is, you know, pushback that we get a lot, and I understand it. I can completely agree that it's going to be another system that people have to kind of get used to, right? So we can't fully move away from CAMS. That's where it has like all the grades and the transcripts and that kind of thing. But I do think, you know, that's going to be the biggest challenge, is to get the whatever it is, the rest of the, you know, faculty or people who aren't necessarily using Upswing to go in and to start utilizing it and embracing the system. I think we can do it though. But what I do like is that we're going to be able to cater our alerts a little bit more in Upswing than we could in CAMS. So that might be a little bit of an adjustment for the campus community, but I think that they're going to really appreciate that once it starts rolling. So my whole thing is, you bring value, it will get people onto the system, and I think we are going to be able to create that value for our community.
Awesome. Thanks for that context. All right. I'm going to pause for one more second and see if there's any other questions. I did get a question to me. All right, I'll go ahead and start with that one. So I had a question about goal setting. You know, as we're moving into this fall semester, things are kind of uncertain. How are you setting up your goals for advising, other than 100% of your faculty, you know, being on? And how is that a little bit different maybe than what you would do in a normal year?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing, our main goal, is to make sure that students know that we are here for them, okay? And I think they know that. And I really think we started with those individual reach outs during this time. And if they do not know, if a student does not know where to go for a particular problem that they're facing, start with us. We might not have the answer, but we'll point them in the right direction. And my team does, I mean, this is a goal that we have all the time, and my team does a phenomenal job. But one of our main things that we're going to do is to be a little bit more flexible, and be a little bit more flexible with our time. If students are remote, well, you know, our regular office hours might not work for them. So we have to make sure that we are being flexible and we meet the students where they are. And we don't know where that's going to be yet, but just to kind of make sure that we're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I see we have another question in the chat from Jamian McNeil asking, do you have any tips for getting students to respond to text messages?
Yeah, I mean, again, the messages that come through Upswing, comes up on their phone as like a text. And, you know, we just kind of started playing around with that, but I've actually had a lot of success with it. So I really haven't had a need to necessarily, you know, work with them on responding to that. They don't respond for the most part to email. Okay. I think we're all kind of understanding that, and they get so many, so I can understand. Sometimes I'm awful at responding to email. I recognize that. So I do think that this Upswing message is just another platform. And again, they see it right on their phone if they sign up for that. So I think that's the big thing, is to get them to sign up, because I think they have to. I don't know if the Upswing people have to clarify with that, but I think when they go in, you have to sign up for the messaging. Like you can still message through Upswing, but for it to go to your phone, you have to sign up for it, I think. Anyway, but that's something that we're going to kind of, you know, keep building, keep advertising, that this is a way for you to message with all your faculty and advisors.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clarify that last point, students are able to opt in or out of text message notifications and push notifications. And so that's
is it automatically opt in when they sign in, or is it do they have to opt in, or are they automatically signed up for it? guess what's the default?
Yeah. They typically have to opt into that.
Okay.
So, you know, if they're receiving a text message, they're much more likely to respond because they actually want that.
Absolutely. So that's something that now that we know and we started working with this, like when we do our orientation, that'll be something that our first year class advisor can mention when she's going through, you know, how to set your Upswing up, and, you know, click this over so you'll get notifications, that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. So it's super simple. I actually did have one more question.
Sure.
In regards to just your training for your advisors. I know you mentioned, you know, that you try and record them so that your faculty advisors especially can get in there. But what are some of the things that you do to train your advisors in these sort of multi-point communication?
Yeah. You know, main thing, setting up your Upswing account, all that good stuff. And there's the scheduling. I think one of the main things that we work on is best practices for taking notes. Okay. You want to make sure that, yes, you're getting the information out there, but you're not necessarily being too detailed with maybe sensitive information, that kind of thing. And I think, you know, a lot better with that, but at first it was just, you know, maybe too much information, or a, you know, a long running list of all these things. Like, we don't necessarily need everything. So I think that's one of the big things that we're continuously working with faculty advisors and running those, developing those kind of trainings, like best practices for communicating.
Absolutely. Awesome. Open it back up.
Can you
Any
ask-
other questions from anyone?
Yes, I do have a question. I was wondering about when students initially sign up for Upswing, is it possible to go ahead and have that that text feature automatically enabled for all your students so that we don't have to go through the process of saying, make sure you sign up for a text?
So that's something we can definitely look into. A lot of the settings in students' profiles are available are permissions based. So maybe Alex can speak more to this, but we typically use the permissions to set defaults.
Okay.
Yeah, I can answer that, Jasmine. So part of the issue that we have with having it set up by default is that for most of our schools, we don't actually receive phone numbers for each student. That's now changing as we start rolling out the enrollment database. One of the optional fields in there is phone number. So if we start getting that data in from schools, and that's something that we could look at turning on by default as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, any last questions? We're right at the last minute or so. All right, doesn't look like it. Well, thank you so much, Luke. We really appreciate you answering all these questions from the audience and participating in that interview. I'm sure everyone got a whole lot out of learning how you guys are doing advising at ACPHS.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to have like further conversations, feel free to share my information. I'd be more than happy to talk to any of us as we, you know, go through this huge challenge of the fall semester.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we'll make sure to make your contact information available to anyone who needs to
Great.
reach out for more.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one, everyone.
So we're gonna have another like 5 minute or so, we'll say passing period or break. So feel free to step away from your computers again if you would like to go use the restroom or get some water. And then we're gonna start in just a few minutes with Deborah from Houston Community College, and she's gonna be doing the next presentation.
Hey, am I in the right place, Aziza?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I understand that we're supposed to start at 11:15, and according to my computer, it's 11:15, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I don't do late. My name is Deborah Hardwick. I am Director of Online Tutoring at Houston Community College, obviously in Houston, Texas. We are a large urban community college with somewhere between 65 and 75,000 students per semester, depending on all sorts of factors. Excuse me. We've been running online tutoring here since 2006. I've been involved with tutoring since about 1983 or so. I'm very old, okay? In 2006, my dean came to me and asked me to figure out a way to incorporate online tutoring into what we do, because I was running face-to-face English tutoring for part of the college. At that time, 16 years ago, 14 years ago, online tutoring was very, very new. Nobody quite knew what it was. Nobody knew what it could do. And so I got hold of a couple of companies that offered the service. I got teachers together and we talked. None of the companies that I ended up talking to, we ended up going with, because one of the things that I asked right from the get-go was, how do we as teachers know what tutors are telling our students? I thought that was a legitimate kind of question. I also wanted to know how I, as chair of this committee, or as the committee as a whole, could evaluate what kind of information our students were getting. And I was told in absolutely no uncertain terms that that was private and confidential information between tutor and student, and teachers and administrators had absolutely no access anywhere, anytime, anyhow. That meeting ended very quickly and not very happily. A group of us went out for lunch, and there were margaritas involved. I must confess to that. We decided that we wanted to try online tutoring, but that we didn't want to be tied into somebody else making decisions for us. And again, remember, this was a long time ago. There weren't nearly as many options as there are now, okay? A couple of weeks later, I got an email just serendipitously from a company called Ask Online out of Boston, and the subject line was, "Our technology, your tutors." And that's where it all began. So having that option of being able to control our own destiny, but getting help, and we were all English teachers, we're not techie folks, okay? So we were able to get that kind of help, and we ended up developing something that I think is pretty fabulous. Since 2006, we have done somewhere in the neighborhood of 250,000 papers. That's a very large number. Since we went with Upswing in 2016, we've done about 55,000. And then we had 10 years prior to that, so you can do the math better than I can, most likely. But as we were putting the whole process together, we decided, mainly I decided, but we to a degree, that we needed to see what we have so we can figure out what we need. Now, why is this important for y'all at this point? Okay? There we go. We're going through monumental changes right now. We don't know what's going on. We do know that tutoring and teaching are going to be online to some degree or another for the foreseeable future. Eventually, God, we certainly hope, we're going to get back to, we're going to get back on campus. We're going to find thousands of students who don't want to do online stuff anymore. They signed up for college planning on sitting in a classroom and talking to teachers. They want to go in and sit down and talk to a tutor. Okay, apparently there are problems with hearing me, seeing me? Don't know. We have to make changes. We have to change what we do, and this is an opportune time to change the way that we deal with tutoring, okay? Not everybody wants online, not everybody has the facilities, not everybody has the technology, not everybody has the cameras and the everything else to make it work. And so we have to have options. So what I would like to do is take you through the process I went through in 2006 as we looked at what we have and what it could become, so that as we have this sort of respite from some of the craziness anyway, you can start looking at what you're going to be doing with tutoring in the future, okay? I want to, let's see, apparently I don't have the thing I wanted to share with you. Houston Community College is sort of like a six-tentacled octopus, okay? There are 6 semi-autonomous regional colleges, Southeast, Southwest, Northeast, Northwest, Central, and then a 6th one that's the Health Careers program, and that's really not an issue for what we were doing in terms of tutoring. But each of those 6 tentacles, if you will, then has a little stickers on them like octopi do, and each of those is an individual campus. So at one point, back in the late 80s, early 90s, we had 27 instructional sites at HCC. That's a lot. I was in charge of English tutoring at the Southwest College, and I had 6 different sites where I had tutors. Clearly, I couldn't have a whole tutoring center with 8 or 10 or 12 tutors in each one, so there was one person at each site. They didn't have computers. It was just, you know, a tutor, a student, a paper, and a piece of pen, and a pencil, and that's the way that it worked. The bigger problem became that each of those 6 tentacles had its own president, its own set of deans, its own set of department chairs, and its own faculty. And those department chairs, so I ran the Southwest English tutoring, Central had its own English tutoring, Northwest had its own English tutoring. So there were 5 different English tutoring programs throughout HCC, all of which were different, none of which were coordinated. So students had absolutely no earthly idea how to get help from one place to another. So a student who wanted to find, for example, trigonometry tutoring had to go to 5 different websites for each of the 5 different math departments in the different colleges and see if there was a trigonometry tutor scheduled on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 3 or whatever. It was just incredibly, incredibly difficult. There were also huge disparities in what tutors did, how much help they gave. There were tutors who pretty much edited and rewrote papers for students, not for me, but for other people. There were those who did like a 5-minute quick run through on thesis and topic sentences and sent the students off on their way. There was absolutely no consistency. And what students did, as students are wont to do, is tutor shop. So they would look for those tutors and those colleges that did the most work for them in most cases, okay? So as I started looking at, okay, what can we do to innovate? And that's the little star over on the side. This is nothing new, okay? This is nothing new whatsoever. It's the recursive evaluative model. The first thing you have to figure out is what you have, and then you figure out what it does, and you talk to people who use whatever system you have. You experiment with new stuff to see what works. You reflect on what you did, and then you redesign it and make it better. And that's an ongoing process, and that, I propose, is what all of y'all should be doing. as you have this time to think about where your school is going to go with tutoring. Now, at Houston Community College, we only use Upswing for asynchronous tutoring. We don't use synchronous, we don't use mentoring, we don't use counseling, we don't use advising, we don't use anything except the asynchronous tutoring. And that's because that was a value way back when in 2006 when we were putting this together. I was an English teacher for way more years than I like thinking about. And one of the things that I noticed as I taught and as I worked with students, both as a teacher and a tutor, if you're sitting across from me and I'm reading a paper that you've written, you, student, your eyes are tracking mine across the page. And so if I, if I stopped, if I kind of looked up and thought about what I had read, if I backed up to reread the introduction to that paragraph, the student got a little nuts. You know, what's wrong? What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong? What did I do wrong? Well, then I contrasted that with sitting at home in my robe and fluffy slippers at my dining room table with my cup of chamomile tea, grading the paper, reading papers, and thinking about how differently I approached each paper. That I could think about it, I could go back and reflect on it. I could do a little bit of research if I needed to. I could look at other papers that students in the same class had done. I had information. And that's when I decided, way back in 2006, that we were going to do this asynchronously. And I first got a lot of blowback from faculty and from tutors. Well, students are never going to wait to, get information about their papers. And yeah, they do. Okay, that's just sort of the way it is. Not everything happens immediately. It just doesn't. We try very, very hard to get everything back within 12 to 18 hours. There are times when we've got 150, 200, 300 papers sitting in queue waiting for tutors that it goes longer. Admit that, don't like that, can't fix that without hiring, gazillions of tutors. But it was important to us that we have that time. So students come into, what's it called, Tutor Up, isn't it? Ask Up. Whatever the asynchronous part is. Okay, I'm not sure. Whatever
Yes,
the
Ask Up.
part. Okay. They come in, they upload their paper, there's a little questionnaire they fill out, this is what they want help with, they summarize the assignment so we have an idea what they're supposed to be doing, or we have an idea that they know what they're supposed to be doing. And then it uploads into queues in the order in which we take them. Tutors come in, and I don't care if the tutor's working at 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon because it's asynchronous, okay? And they take the first paper in queue. It's kind of like a Pez dispenser. Okay, so they click view and they've got that first paper. And then they work the paper. They tutor it, they comment on it, they do the whole thing. And then re-upload it. The student gets the message from Upswing that it's ready, then they come in and they download. Students can then submit a second time. So that but there's time. There's so much time involved. Now, when we get to STEM, typing math and science on a keyboard is a pain. Okay, we know that. We all know that. Whiteboards are mediocre at best, and students don't have whiteboards for the most part. So what we do instead is ask students to take whatever the problem is or whatever the solution is, whatever the problem is that they're working on, write it out on a sheet of paper, take a picture with their phone, and upload that. Then the tutor goes in, downloads it, can see where, took that left turn and got off track. And then my STEM tutors will design a new question using the same concept, but using different variables or using different criteria, whatever. Write out the entire step-by-step process for how to solve this kind of problem, how to factor a polynomial, for example. Send that back to the student and then ask Susie student to take that same process, that same step-by-step process, and apply it to the question that they sent to us. And it works phenomenally well. It works incredibly well. Tutors have time to think about the whole thing, okay? And the time is the critical factor. We also, you may not know this, students cheat. Plagiarism is a problem, okay? And so we have time to actually look for plagiarism, and we have a whole process by which we do that. Now, I sent Aziza a whole slew of documents, handouts for students and for tutors, some PowerPoints, some training things. She's going to make them available someplace or other. She will let you know where that's going to be. I don't have a clue. But you can go in and you can pull down and download and read all of those materials that we've developed over the last, 14, 15 years. Feel free to steal them, but please give us attribution if you do, okay? Another issue we looked at, besides the whole asynchronous thing, was who was going to tutor. At HCC, our culture has always been to use faculty-level tutors. We don't use student tutors, except in a few math and a couple of chemistry things. But generally speaking, we have found that at a community college, a second-year student just isn't that far ahead of a first-year student. They're just not, okay? And so the other problem is supervision remotely, which is also an issue. If we have a student tutor in a tutoring center and there are grown-up tutors around, it's a little easier to help out if a student gets stuck, or to make suggestions, or to notice problems that need help. Remotely, we can see things asynchronously, but not necessarily at the same time. So we chose to use all faculty and faculty-eligible tutors. My tutors make $21.93 an hour, which is consistent with what they've been making before. That's the pay rate for adjunct faculty on an hourly basis. Upswing, of course, has its own onboard timesheet, and then there's a very long process, but ultimately that gets inputted into our time and labor system, and people get paid for the time that they work. What happens when I hire new people is I let them know from the very beginning that this is the vacation fund money, it's not the mortgage money. So that tutors only get paid for the time that they actually work. They don't get paid to sit there and play Candy Crush on their telephones in a tutoring center. Okay, we've all seen that happen. We don't do that. So, the trade-off, of course, is that you don't have to get dressed. I tell tutors that I'm hiring them to work at home in their robe and fluffy slippers. They don't have to put gas in the car. They don't have to get out in Houston traffic. And if you've ever been in Houston, you know that that's a real advantage. I don't care if they're working at 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, because it's asynchronous. If they need to leave to go take the cat to the vet, or take, Johnny to soccer practice or whatever, they leave. As long as, they know how many hours a week they're expected to work, they work it, and they get paid for it. Now, when there's no work, beginning of semester, between semesters, there's no money. But then if they were doing on-campus tutoring, there wouldn't be money either. So, that's kind of a moot point. And it works, okay? Tutors like the flexibility of being able to control their own time. So, you get up in the morning and you feel like crap and you just don't want to get in traffic and go into work. You don't have to, okay? Because there are other tutors who can also cover for you. And that's an important part of what's going on. Now, we have something that we call a two-tiered tutoring system. So if, for example, you're taking a government class and you're doing a paper, you write your paper, you submit it into our government queue. A government tutor, Alex Kanakis, who's up there on the top and my only full-time tutor, is a government person. The government tutors will read the paper for content. Does it say what it should? Do you, the student, understand the concepts? Are you using vocabulary as they're used in the discipline? Are you using sources that are used and acceptable within the discipline, and Wikipedia never is, by the way. Then it goes from the government tutor or the psych tutor or the history tutor or the whatever tutor, it goes automatically to an English tutor who then critiques the paper for grammar, structure, and organization. Both tutors, both content and English, work on plagiarism, and we have a whole process for dealing with plagiarism that I'll talk about in just a minute. But everybody's responsible for that. And so students are getting the same messages from a whole lot of different people. Then they take the two responses that they get from the tutors, the one or the two depending, and they can rewrite the paper. They can fix it. We teach them how to fix their papers. And then they can submit it again, and it can go through a second set of tutors again. So they're getting a lot of feedback, but at the same time, we're not writing the papers for them. Now, with the old Ask Online system, and we were with them for 10 years, and I adore them to death, and I would still be with them if they hadn't gone out of business and sold out to Upswing. So, you know, when Upswing bought Ask Online, they bought me as well. I understand how baseball players feel now, being bought and sold. But we developed something that we call our toolbar. It's now a toolkit, but it's an add-on that you use in Word. And what I've done, or what we've done, is taken the most common comments, whether it's a comma splice, or whether it's thesis statement stuff, or whether it's annotation, and we have buttons you can click. So the tutor doesn't have to keep typing the same definition of comma splice over and over and over and over, but rather you click a button and bada bing, there's the definition and there's an example of how to fix it, and that tells the student what needs to be done. Okay. Plagiarism, surprisingly, is an issue. Okay, it's just so easy to cheat. So what we do as we're reading through, and pretty much anyone who's got more than about a second grade education recognizes when something sounds off. When a student has written something and this paragraph just doesn't sound like that paragraph. You know, it's kind of like going to a Chinese buffet and having a pizza in the middle of the buffet. It doesn't work. So what we do instead, the tutor goes through, and when something feels funky, when something just feels wrong, we'll spend just a minute or two Googling an indicative sentence. If we find it, that's cool. We highlight that offending passage in hot pink, and we have a pre-printed message that says, you know, you took this passage from www.imanIdiot.com. In order to make sure that it's not plagiarism, please do the following. And then we give them handouts and we give them information about how to annotate so they're not plagiarizing. More commonly, however, is we know they plagiarized it, but we can't find it. And I don't want to pay tutors a whole lot of money to spend a whole lot of time Googling a sentence. So what we do in that case is take the offending passage, we highlight it in that horrible bilious green that Word has, and then we have a whole set of comments that, this is a specific statistic that you would not have known if you hadn't looked it up. Please annotate it thusly. Or the vocabulary in this paragraph is really different from the vocabulary in the rest of the paper. You know, please annotate it appropriately. Now, we have, through our HCC library system, a resource center, which is this huge, vast collection of handouts, of PowerPoints, of materials that tutors have made available, that's free and available for everybody. You can actually all access it as well if you just go to hccs.upswing.io, and then in the top left-hand corner, there's a link that says tutor handouts, and click on it, and they're free, and, you know, feel free to steal them, but, you know, give us a little bit of credit for it if you do. That's a good thing to do. Thank you, Aziza, for posting that. So we don't just tell students what they're doing wrong, but we teach them how to do it right. And that's what makes the difference in the whole process, okay? The two biggest obstacles that you're going to overcome, first of all, we do have a robust face-to-face tutoring program at HCC. I don't run it. I was asked to take it over, and I said not only no, but hell no. I'm getting close to retirement, and I'm not about to take on a brand new great big job. So, but we do have a huge program. They've had to figure out how to go virtual during COVID. They will eventually be going back to campus when we have campuses again, I'm sure. But in the meantime, all of those parts have to come together. So the face-to-face tutoring, the online tutoring, asynchronously, faculty being able to get to me. I mean, I've been here forever and ever and ever. And so when a teacher has a question or a student says, well, you know, we submitted our paper and those bums never sent it back and I need another week to work on my paper, thank you very much. Then the teacher gets, you know, pops me an email and I go in and I can find it very quickly and I can say, no, 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 your student never even bothered to log in, has never signed up, is not in the system, you know, go flog him. That kind of works as well, okay? But I have credibility with faculty. And so faculty can come to me with any question they have. We go to faculty meetings, we go to student meetings, we go to all kinds of stuff. And we get the word out, and it works. But it took a lot of experimentation, it took a lot of reflecting, it took a lot of talking to people, it took a lot of, oh yeah, that didn't work, did it? Let's try again. We've tried subjects that didn't work for all kinds of reasons. And it's recursive. You just keep innovating. You just keep changing. That's what we do. So take this time, kind of, right now everything is online, absolutely, and it's going to be for a while. It's not going to be forever. You're going to need to take some tutoring back on campus. This is your chance to get rid of the, well, we've always done it this way, or we've never done it that way, and make it better. And I strongly suggest that you take that time. Clearly, all of us, you know, in this forum are committed to online tutoring, duh, or we wouldn't be here. But that's not all there is. There is more, and online needs to be part of a much larger, more comprehensive, more complete system. And that's what I would encourage you to work on. It's worked for us. We've been doing it for 15 years. We won the Star Award for the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board for Innovation. We came in second place in the Bellwether Awards out of the University of Florida. We've won several other national, state and national awards. And it works. It works. I will be more than happy to communicate with you individually. Please go in once Aziza gets all of my materials up and posted. Go in and take a look at them. Feel free. Feel free to steal. Feel free to ask me questions. I love talking about tutoring, and I will answer any questions you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deborah. As she just said, now is the time that we're going to open up for questions. So if anyone has a question that you've been thinking about or just occurred to you, either unmute yourself or please do put a question in the chat, and we'll pause now to let you do that.
Okay, looking forward to questions.
Okay.
Why don't we use TutorUp? Because we want more local control. I want to hire my own tutors. I want to train my own tutors. I want to oversee my own tutors. I want absolute transparency in what my tutors do. We use HCC faculty who understand our reality, our curriculum, our students, and our needs. That's why.
And just to clarify, so that's on not using the Upswing tutors, and the other kind of side to that is on the other tutoring, face-to-face tutoring program. And I know you had mentioned, obviously in COVID, that they're online, but in general, was there a reason that that other program that you are not over did not end up going to use Upswing to bring their tutors online?
Okay, I can't necessarily speak to that, but again, it's a question of local control.
Okay, awesome, thanks. I do have, okay, it looks like
No, we
Carol's
don't use
asking.
any Ask Up tutors whatsoever.
Right, so they're just using the Ask Up system, but with their own tutors.
With HCC tutors, correct.
Right. Okay, so a couple other questions that I have actually. So, Deborah, you mentioned as you're kind of going through your plagiarism process and looking through, okay, we see this doesn't fit. How can we, tell a student to annotate it correctly or what have you? What process do you have for students who end up being quote unquote repeat offenders in the plagiarism idea?
Not my issue. What we do, of course, through Upswing, we can see previous submissions. And so if a student, if a tutor, if several tutors have commented on plagiarism time and time again, we'll repeat, you are still plagiarizing and you still need to go back and read the information that we gave you, and here's the handout one more time. But ultimately, that's the teacher's job. And I'm not a teacher anymore.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's good to hear that it's still not a limit that you put on the service for students to not use it anymore. Okay. So another one is actually in regard to your different subjects. I mean, you mentioned you have students upload like a screenshot of their work for like STEM subjects, but can you talk through a little bit more what the strategy was in getting students to use that type of format for something that's not an English paper?
Teachers tell them they have to if they want to get extra credit.
Gotcha, extra credit.
That's easy. That's
Yeah.
easy.
Okay, cool.
We have 25 named subjects, and then we have another one called Other. And faculty has been terribly supportive.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we have faculty that do two things. We have carrots and we have sticks. So we have some teachers who will give a couple of bonus points if students use Upswing, formerly Ask Online, and then submit that along with their packet. Others will take points away if they don't. And others, students have figured out that it works, it helps. So they just kind of don't argue with us anymore.
That makes sense. Another thing that you mentioned was processing payroll and looking at reports. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use the reporting on Upswing and any other reports that you use to facilitate this?
Sure. Alex, Pritchett, you might want to cover your ears for this.
No.
No, not Kanakis, Pritchett. The onboard time clock in Upswing is occasionally problematic. So that it will sometimes show somebody as, it'll keep repeating time, and so somebody who has been on for 45 minutes, it'll actually show as 45:90 and minute 35. It'll show as being on there like 2 hours because it just keeps replicating time and time again, and so it's problematic. What we do instead, at the end of each Upswing day, when tutors have had all the fun that they want to have, they go into the accounts and they look at their day's time. And I push them very hard to do that every day, because if there is an issue, if something replicated, if, you know, got up to go take the cat to the vet and forgot to log out, whatever, if they're doing it contemporaneously, they're going to remember. Each tutor has a self-adding Excel spreadsheet that I send out at the beginning of each pay period. And they enter that block of time, 4 hours, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, into the appropriate square on the Excel spreadsheet, and they send that to me. And at this point, and it's really a pain, I have to manually enter every single person's time for every single day. We're in the process of beginning to automate that, where eventually we'll be able to do a data dump from Upswing into our time and labor. We're not there yet, and Upswing's time system is not good enough yet for me to feel comfortable with that, or for our payroll people to feel comfortable with it. But that's how we do that.
Okay, well, we appreciate your feedback on that, and we'll definitely be in touch to see what are some of the other ways that we can kind of support and build that up for you guys.
Okay, yeah, Alex just reminded me that a lot of our faculty, I would guess probably half our faculty, now put an Upswing link into their syllabi. It's in Canvas. It's sort of all over the place.
Okay, awesome. One other thing I wanted, if you could talk about for a quick second, was actually you mentioned the repository of information on hccs.upswing.io. Could you share, because HCCS does a really great job actually of having information on their Upswing landing page, and not all the schools, you know, use that as robustly. Can you talk about what you do with that exactly, and how that helps your students?
I'm sorry, ask that question again, please, Aziza.
Yeah. So on HCCS landing page for Upswing, you guys have different information and links for students. How do you update and change that, and what are the different ways you use that to support students?
I do it.
Yes.
It used to be that every time I wanted to change the turnaround time, I had to write to one of you and ask you to do it. And you were all getting very tired of me. So finally, your development team changed it so I could do it myself. And I thank you for that.
Sure.
You know, I update the turnaround time just based on what kind of stuff is coming in. We have a link to our resource center, which is at hccs.upswing.io. And I have one person who works on that. She's a tutor, art tutor, and she also works on that, working with the library system and keeping that updated, checking links, keeping that all clear and clean. We also have faculty doing, yeah, go ahead and share that up screen, Alex. Share the screen so they can see
okay.
it. Okay, I'm going to have Alex go ahead and show you what that actually looks like. But teachers will do demos on how to use Upswing, and they include how to use that system. We also have links to how to change your password. We have links to, you know, a variety of things, and I'm the one who keeps that up. Okay.
Okay. And here's where we usually talk about the turnaround time. Deborah updates this whenever it's needed. Obviously, it will change, you know, between midterm and final exams. Here is the link to our resource guide, and I'll go ahead and click on this. It opens up a separate window, and the nice thing about it is you don't have to log into Upswing. You can go in by yourself, and as Deborah said, feel free to borrow some of this stuff, just credit us with it. We have this wonderful area on plagiarism where we have tons of information, handouts, style guides, websites on how to use them, defining what plagiarism is. And as you can tell, let me scroll back up here, we have every single practically every single subject that is taught at HCC. Okay.
Awesome.
Just go in very briefly, Alex, and show them the government page.
Okay, sure. Okay. Again, we give you handouts, objective versus subjective, fact versus opinion, the different websites and videos of American government. Let's see.
Yeah, and we have that for all of our subject areas.
Mm-hmm.
Chemistry department uses us as their repository for all of their handouts for all of the chemistry classes. So it works. Go back to the login page, please, quickly, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right now, we also, our real-time tutoring, our face-to-face tutoring has gone virtual. So we have that big box telling students how to get that kind of help. They're doing it independently. We have our own staff. We've got 250 tutors. We don't want to put out of work by outsourcing them to you. We have the Tutoring Resource Center. We have a Yammer account. We have a Twitter account. So we have all of that information that we give students, and then we also down at the bottom, and again, feel free, you don't need to log in, to watch our video about how the whole thing works. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I do appreciate it.
No problem.
Happy to share.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to have one last call for questions. We're right at the edge of time here. Does anyone else in the session have a question for Deborah?
Okay. Alex is going to be next up, and he's going to talk about the whole tutor training structure that we use and how we make our tutors so absolutely wonderful and how we keep track of everything that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and end this session. I thank you again so much, Deborah. And everyone has about 3 minutes if they need to, like I said, take a water break or anything like that. And then at 12, Alex will go ahead and get started with our final breakout session here.
Thank you so much. And we can take my
Okay, it's 12 o'clock, so whenever Alex Kanakis is ready, then we'll go ahead and get started with our final breakout session.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Alex Kanakis. I am responsible for the care and feeding of Deborah Hardwick. At least that's what it said on my job application. No, actually, I'm her full-time tutor, and I am currently obviously working from home. I do have an office. We both have offices at the main administration building for HCC, but haven't been there since March. The nice thing, though, about the asynchronous way of tutoring is that we can still work from home. We can monitor the site. We can also stay in touch with our tutors. Just a real brief summary of what we do. First off, we, as Deborah has said, we use HCC accredited tutors. These are people who have at least a master's degree, and they also have the required numbers of hours of a specific discipline that they are teaching. As she has mentioned, I have a master's degree in political science. I also have a minor in English literature, which also comes in handy. Just a little brief summary about myself, just to give you an idea of what I was doing prior to becoming full-time. I was working not only as an HCC online tutor, I was also teaching political science at 2 other community colleges with 4 other campuses. So my day was pretty full. I was going from one end of Houston to the other, and then doing online tutoring in my spare time and in the evenings. Fortunately, Deborah took me away from all that, and now I work for her. Some of the things that we do with tutors, we mentor them, we train them. We also look for tutors who are teaching less than 2 classes at HCC, preferably less than 1 class, because it does limit the number of hours that they can tutor with us. If they're teaching at another accredited university, let's say we've got one tutor who's teaching at Blinn College right now, and she can teach a full load there, and she can work with us 19.5 hours a week. Okay, state law kind of limits how many hours a tutor can work if they are employed by HCC. Okay, and Deborah, feel free to jump in on anything to expand on that. Tutors usually come to us through recommendation. Deborah also puts out a job listing. Of course, right now we're not in a hiring freeze. Right now we're in what we call a hiring chill. So we really cannot hire any tutors at this point. Right now we have about 40 or so dedicated tutors for HCC Upswing. Some are actually what I call dual threat tutors. They can do not only content, they can do English, which really helps speeds up the process. When we do get a tutor who is interested in working for us, of course, Deborah will interview them. And once they have successfully applied and have been given the accreditation check, because they have to have the same credentials that any faculty will have to have at HCC, and they fill out the application and everything is dotted and crossed, they will then get hired. And then my part comes in, and that's training them. To give you an idea of what tutors do and don't do, let me give you just a real brief summary. English tutors are going to make notes and comments throughout the paper to help the student see what needs to be corrected. You know, there is a punctuation error or a comma error in this sentence. This is a run-on sentence. This needs to be fixed. They don't correct it and they don't grade the work, but they explain how it needs to be fixed. Okay, content tutor is pretty much the same thing. When I look at a government paper, and in fact, I'll bring up a sample one right now so you can see it. And the names have been changed to protect the innocent, or not.
Or the guilty.
Or the guilty, yeah. More likely the guilty, because this one was a little bit interesting. Okay. Okay, this is a student who submitted a paper for government. And again, I will make certain observations. Here's the infamous bilious green tutoring, because this person cited something from one of their textbooks and did not do it properly. Sometimes I'll even help them with a little bit of Socratic tutoring. For those of you who are English tutors, you're going to love this one. This thesis sentence absolutely makes no sense. And I asked them, would you say that, and sort of give them an idea. Okay. We look at comment. I make sure that they cite everything properly. I make sure that they also don't engage in generalizations, which a lot of students tend to do. Everybody does this. Well, no, everybody does not do this. I ask them to clarify things. If they make a statement regarding let's say, for example, what the reform of the criminal justice system in Texas would be like. I give them the breadcrumb trail. How would the legislature go about doing this? Give us some more details, okay? And again, I will look at the content. This person did engage. Here's a good example of what Deborah had mentioned regarding phraseology that just does not seem to fit with the student's previous tone of the paper. Okay, let me pull it up to the top so you can sort of see what kind of head note I will put here for the student. And again, I'll point. Go ahead.
One of the things that we do, and it's important that we get in here, when I'm in the process of hiring a new tutor, Alex will go through and find 3 or 4 really well-tutored papers in whatever the particular discipline is and send those out to the tutor so that he can have models. Then we send a paper or 2 without, from which we've stripped the tutor's comments, and ask the tutor to, now pretend that you're doing this for the student, and then kind of compare what the experienced tutor said with what the newbie said, and then we can go from there in developing individualized training.
Mm-hmm. It's very important. It's very important for tutors to find their own voice. What may work for me may not work for somebody who is tutoring physics or is tutoring art history. Once tutors find their own voice and they're very comfortable in pointing out discrepancies to the student and suggesting ways to fix it, that's when we know the tutor will become very successful. Okay. Getting back to the mechanics of tutoring, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the login page. Every tutor will log in with their employee ID and their HCC email password. It works beautifully because if they can memorize their email password, they can log into Upswing. Of course, when they change their email password, they better change it here, otherwise they're going to get locked out. When a tutor logs in, they'll go straight to the home page. Here's where they can claim an assignment to review. Okay. And let's say, for the sake of argument,
we're not at Alex.
Yeah, Alex, your screen is still on your Word document.
Okay, it's still okay.
Still loading.
Thinking. Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why we still have to have some on-campus person-to-person stuff and not just all online.
Exactly. Let me know when it comes up.
Still not.
Okay, yeah,
Keep
it's still loading.
Keep talking while you're waiting for it to load.
Sure, no problem. Again, once the let me close this out. Okay, much better.
No, we just have you.
Okay, let me try
Wonderful as well.
Let me try one more time.
One of the issues that I had with the old form of tutoring we were doing with Ask Online was that tutors would sometimes go in and cherry pick.
Yes.
And, you know, looking for the easy papers or the quick papers, and that was a problem. So we set it up so it's kind of like a Pez dispenser.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there are, you know, here there's, well, I mean, pretend that there are 15 papers in art. There aren't right now, but pretend that there are. When the tutor claims it, you're going to get the one that's been there longest. So the tutors can't mess around and go in and cherry pick.
Right. That's always a problem. Okay. So here's the list of assignments that we have. And as Deborah pointed out, we cover pretty much everything. This one right here that says Content English, these are papers which have already been previously tutored for a content area: government, history, art, business, philosophy, you name it. Anything that is not an actual English course. Here is where the second tier of tutoring will take place, where the English tutor will then review a government paper and look for spelling, grammar, punctuation issues. Okay. All right, let me close out of this. Okay. Another important thing that we focus on is actual tutor interaction with each other. Up until the COVID situation, Deborah would host a series of seminars that she would call boot camps, and they would usually occur before the beginning of each semester. And this is where we would go over different techniques. We would talk about how many submissions we had in the previous semester, certain issues that we were facing, certain items that needed to be addressed.
Curriculum changes from the state.
Right. Mm-hmm. And on certain occasions, we would also have to have the naughty and the nice report. I'll leave that one to Deborah to describe because I wouldn't be able to do it justice. But yes, sometimes tutors need to be given a little bit of a little love tap. Let's keep them in line a little bit.
Actually, I'm a firm believer that one praises publicly and punishes privately.
Yes.
So I will occasionally, we had an issue with a couple of tutors who were getting a little bit snarky in their comments. And so I went through and I pulled comments, took all identifying information, all names off them, typed them up separately, you know, put them as handouts on tables and said, okay, if you were a student and you got this from a tutor, how would you react? The tutors who had written them knew that they were being chastised, but I wasn't bringing that to the table, you see.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that we do is ask tutors to, and I wish there were a way that I could get it directly from Upswing, but I can't. When students write back and thank a tutor, or, you know, I got an A on this paper, it's the first A I've ever had in history in my life, I ask tutors to send those to me. I call them kudos. I put them together every 2 or 3 months, put a big sheet of kudos along with the tutor who got the kudo, and send them out to everybody so that everybody knows who's doing really well. Okay?
Exactly. And that kind of feedback is really good because it makes tutors want to strive to improve themselves. When they see how, you know, tutor A was complimented so effusively by a student, it would make them want to, you know, be in tutor A's shoes. That's another thing that we look at with what tutors do and how they react. We'll go occasionally and spot check some tutor submissions, maybe look for some snark. Maybe look for tutors who didn't identify plagiarism properly, which is every tutor's duty. Doesn't matter if you're tutoring English or STEM or humanities or whatever, you know, it's behooves us to let the student know that what they did is not cool. Okay. Me being the professor that I am, I'm usually going to stop right here and see if anybody has any brief questions before I go on about how to keep the boss happy. Don't be shy.
None of you work for me, so you don't have to worry about it.
That's right.
I really miss the boot camps because when one works from home, it's very easy to feel isolated. And through the whole COVID thing, people are beginning to feel that stress of, I just want to see people.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have that. So getting people together, sharing stuff, we always have at least 2 or 3 tutors doing presentations during boot camps. We never bring in outside, well, I actually brought in Alex Pritchett a couple of times when we were first getting started, but I don't bring in outside experts. We teach each other.
Okay. We do have a question here, Deborah. Are we part of CRLA?
No.
Okay.
CRLA, I am a member, and I've presented at several of their conferences. It's kind of like, you know, you should never go into a sausage factory because you know how it's made. I know how evaluations for CRLA are done. I've done them before. It's a self-assessment. We do self-assessments without the necessity of an outside agency. So yeah, we don't. Now, our face-to-face tutoring is indeed part of CRLA, and all of the face-to-face tutors are now at level 1.
Okay. Okay, let me go ahead and proceed with how to keep the boss happy. I like to call this the world according to Deborah Hardwick. For starters, remember that this is a real job. Okay. This is, again, this is not paying the rent money. This is saving up for the vacation money. Okay. When tutors are tutoring, they need to be careful not to what I call stash papers, meaning claim an assignment and then forget about it for an hour and a half. That's a big no-no. That will get you a little reprimand, especially if it's done more than once. Also with tutors, I plead guilty to this. I like to go in and see what tutors are doing, how long they're doing it for. Every Friday I go in and I look at the assignment versus hour ratio. Right now we're looking at one assignment, average 3 to 4 pages. It will take an hour, about an hour for a tutor to go through. Okay. If tutors are exceeding the 1 hour limit, or if they're really, really grossly over, let's say 20 hours, 5 assignments, something's wrong. And that's when I turn it over to the boss. Okay.
Let me come back to this question about building community.
Mm-hmm.
Tutors can read what other tutors have said. So if Alex goes in and pulls up a paper, he goes into previous submissions, he can see what the other tutors have said, he can read how other tutors handle things, and they can communicate. Now, we still don't have a messaging system for tutor-to-tutor communications, Alex Pritchett. We will eventually, okay? But they email, and so they can talk back and forth about how did you handle this? Hey, I'm starting to get papers on this, what do you suggest? Mm-hmm. And the boot camp helped tremendously on that as well.
Yes. We have our tutors subdivided into categories. For example, you know, all the art tutors know each other. There's about 3 of them. And they can communicate with each other and say, okay, I'm free Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. What days are you free? The same thing with the business tutors. English tutors, we have so many of them. It's really hard, if not impossible, for all of them to get together and compare schedules. But for the ones that tutor content, it's much easier for them to acquaint themselves with each other, compare notes with each other. Art tutors are really good about this. They will compare notes with respect to assignments that have been coming in, and they usually come in, content assignments will come in 5, 6 times, you know, 5 or 6 at a time. We just recently had a run on teacher education papers. All of them had to do with profiling a family. So though that group of tutors will immediately know, okay, this is going to be something we're going to have to deal with. Let's compare notes. And again, it's very easy for tutors to develop that kind of camaraderie with each other. And not to mention the fact too that tutors will also be the first to let us know if a specific tutor is not pulling his or her weight. They will rat you out in a minute. Kid you not.
And what happens in that case is I go in and I say, as I was reading through the papers, I noticed that, to avoid, you know, pointing the finger at a fellow tutor. I read about 10% of all of the submissions that come in, all of the tutor work. And Alex reads probably 5%, usually not the same papers. And tutors will tell on each other, and so and they'll also talk to each other. And, you know, I noticed that you seem to be having problems with da 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 da, and you know, this is what I did. So
that was a nice function of boot camp too, where everybody could just get together and compare notes. And as Deborah said, it makes you feel like you're part of something big. Okay, I'll stop briefly for some more questions. What time is it? We got about another 20 minutes. But I'll stop briefly for some more questions if anybody cares to ask about anything. Methodology, tutoring styles, anything to that effect.
what we do as a general practice, once we download a paper, we copy it, save it over into Word, work it in Word, make sure that it's double spaced, that it's, you know, black ink. That this one student who kept submitting stuff in a yellow font.
Oh God.
Yeah, why bother, right? And so we just make sure that the tutor makes sure that everything is easy to work with and so forth. And then actually tutor the paper and then go ahead and re-upload it along with a substantial head note to the student explaining what to look for as you work through the paper. Now we had some tutors, not anymore, who used to do footnotes. But I prefer a head note because that lets students know what to look for ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. That really comes in handy with second submissions. I will always look at a previous submission, and a good tutor will put really good head notes describing what they found, and so it makes my job a lot easier. I can go in, make sure that those errors have been corrected, and then tell the student, you know, you've picked up everything that the first tutor found. I found a couple of other things. Other than that, this is going to be ready to turn in. We have a policy with HCC Upswing. We only look at 2 submissions per student.
2 drafts.
2 drafts. If they submit a third, they get the polite little message, we really wish we could help, but we are only looking at 2 drafts per assignment. Your teacher needs to see your work, not ours. Students actually are pretty good about stuff like that. I can count on one hand problem students that we've had. Students who have either been very snarky. One student in particular that sticks in my mind is one who basically told me to do something to myself that is physically impossible. At which point I turned that one over to Deborah and said, this is yours.
One of the realities in the old system that I was talking about with that six-tentacled octopus was that students would go from campus to campus to campus to campus to campus to tutor to tutor to tutor and get 18 different tutors working on a single paper. So that by the time the teacher got it, there may have been 3 ands and a 2 that were the students' words in there. Now, with the previous submissions process, we stop that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, if students are really abusive, and we've had a few, I'll disable them for 30 days. Throw them out for 30 days, let them know why, and then, hopefully one of the other of us will remember to reinstate them.
Okay. Again, it's a very symbiotic performance here in Upswing between the student, the tutor, and Deborah and myself. Students look to us for guidance. A lot of times I'll get an assignment and it's, for reason for tutoring, I need help. That's all they'll put. In interpreting what students say, you can sort of get an idea of what their needs are. We have a lot of international students where English is their second or sometimes third language. And they'll be very upfront about it. This is my first time attending college in America. Am I doing this right? A good tutor will also be a good mentor and will empathize with the student, but at the same time point out what needs to be done. Deborah, who has taught ESOL for more years than she cares to admit, I think it was very proactive in getting tutors to understand this, especially if your college or university has a great number of international students the way HCC does.
In the packet of stuff that Aziz is going to be posting, there is a PowerPoint there called How You Say It. And it's, one of my tutors wrote this PowerPoint, and it's an absolutely incredible piece about reading between the lines to figure out what students say and what they really need help with. And I would strongly suggest that you watch it, share it. Don't sell it unless I get a kickback.
Make it 2 kickbacks.
Yeah, but it's just an incredible piece that Sandy wrote.
Here's a good question for you, Deborah. Have there been significant barriers in working with ESOL students in an asynchronous fashion?
The only real problem that I see us having, Jamian, is students who want pronunciation and vocabulary practice, and we just can't do that in our text-based async system. But generally speaking, because students have the time, everything is written out rather than having to listen and figure out the problem, it's actually been really successful.
And also too, with the turnaround time on the login page, it also teaches every student about time management. On occasion, we will get students who kind of forget to read the login page and say, here's my paper, it's 10 a.m., I need it by 5 p.m. today.
Or I need it in an hour.
Yes. So we have to manage their expectations as well. We don't refuse a student. We will tell them we will get it done, not within your time frame, but within ours. And we will tutor it so you can see what needs to be done. Other than that, it's gone pretty smoothly. And again, the only restrictions we've had with the pandemic is just not having a live boot camp, which would have been nice, but definitely impractical.
We have been the luckiest people in the entire Houston Community College.
Yes.
Because we've been working remotely for 15 years. And so I know how to supervise, and my folks know how to work remotely. And I've been working with other supervisors and other managers throughout the system, teaching them how to do what we already do.
Exactly.
No, we don't do that.
No, we don't do video clips. No.
Real
There
quick.
are a few video clips within the resource center, but nah, we're not going to do that. Students can go online and get a face-to-face real-time tutor for that. We don't try to be everything to everybody.
Right. We do recognize that some students do have some kind of barriers, whether it's a hearing or a visual impairment, and we can work with those. Usually though, when students submit assignments in an asynchronous format, you know, it's going to be all the printed word. That's pretty much it.
You know what they say, if you try to be everything to everybody, you're nothing to nobody.
That's right.
And so we have chosen to pick our battles, to do some things incredibly well and not try to replicate what else is available from other people.
Exactly.
Anything else?
Yeah, any other questions?
Well, thank you all for taking time to listen to us.
We hope we provided you some beneficial information on how to do asynchronous tutoring. What I like about it, besides the flexibility of working from home, is the fact too that when a tutor takes a paper, they can cogitate on it and formulate their response without compromising any kind of quality. That's been my experience. Once tutors find their own voice, they're very successful in meeting the needs of these students. And it does make you feel good when a student does respond to you and say, I couldn't have done this without you.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did have a quick question for you, Alex.
Sure.
When you're talking about tutor feedback and when you get feedback, how do you have your tutors use the messaging to students to either respond to that, or when they submit comments on a paper, do you instruct them to put their feedback on the personal experience with the tutor getting their comments? Do you give any instruction one or the other, or do you mostly have students giving that positive feedback to tutors just kind of off the cuff?
It's off the cuff most of the time. It's usually just a thank you and that's it. If they really, I'll just speak from my own experience, if they really are effusive, I will forward the comment and the ticket to Deborah for my personnel file. But it's up to the individual tutor. You know, I will always say, you know, thank you so much for using our service. We hope we can help you again. Again, if there was a way that tutors could message us online and share those kudos with us, that would be wonderful.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, so Christmas.
Awesome. Okay. Well, good to know your process on that.
Yeah, it's up to the individual tutor. I'm sure, I can't speak for Deborah, but I'm sure that other tutors besides myself have probably forwarded comments to her that are favorable.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what they have to do is copy and paste them and send them on to me, because I can't access them through Upswing. So
Right.
I have to depend on tutors to brag on themselves.
Right. As long as they include the student's last name and W number, we can find it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I did have one more question also on the training side of things. So obviously, you know, you've mentioned the boot camps at length. What is the timing structure for training? Is this something that is the tutor goes to a boot camp and then you kind of release them into the wild of your asynchronous environment, or do you do kind of ongoing trainings with your tutors, or just kind of as issues come up, what is
I'll
that?
defer that one to Deborah.
Okay. We have well, in pre-COVID days, we had 2 boot camps a semester, 2 boot camps a school year rather. In the interim, we do other stuff. So I may send out papers that we get that indicate a particular kind of problem that we're seeing systemically, and I will ask all the tutors who tutor that particular subject to, pretend that you're doing this for a student and send it on to me. We're in the process right now of trying to put some tutoring together through WebEx, where I can do a large meeting as a boot camp, or I can post self-paced modules with included and embedded scenarios and stuff for tutors to do, to email back to me. We're still working on how we're going to do this post-COVID. But again, because Alex and I spend a lot of our time looking at what tutors do, when we see issues, I go in, this is my job, I'm the bad guy. I go in and I will comment, I would have said thus. Why did you tell the student this? And then I'll often send another related or similar paper and ask them to redo it or to do it and send it back to me so that I can look at the growth that they're making. But training is ongoing.
Right. When we first get an applicant who wants to be a tutor, as Deborah has said, she will assign them 2 or 3 practice papers. Once she is satisfied the way that the prospective tutor has handled the tutoring process, then they're ready to go. They're released into the wild. But I'd say probably Deborah, for the first 6 to 8 months, this person probably is just going to be looked at very, very closely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the first 6 months or so, eagle eyes here, keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I read everybody's stuff at least once or twice a year. I've got tutors who've been working with me for 15 years now, and I don't need as much time with them, although a few are getting a little bit complacent, and I have to sort of rap them on the knuckles with a wooden spoon. But yeah, training and encouragement and feedback are recursive. They're ongoing. They can't ever stop.
Right.
Or you die.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And with you mentioning tutors that have been with you for, say, 15 years or so, how do you continue to engage those tutors with, the same types of topics, right? Obviously, they're very specialized, which is why you have your own tutors on the platform. So how do you, continue to keep them engaged when, like you said, the level of students from a year 1 to a year 2 doesn't really change that much?
The topics that they're writing about change. We have a few teachers who keep giving the same topic year after year, but there's always something new going on for students. It may be new subjects, it may be new topics, it may be new sources. Mm-hmm. Now in Texas, we're going through this whole big co-requisite thing where students are taking freshman composition and developmental or ESL concurrently, which is sort of problematic, but that involves a whole different set of tutoring skills.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like anything else, you do it long enough and you get really good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Tutoring is fluid. It's not going to be the same day in and day out. There's going to be different challenges, and luckily, Deborah's been around long enough to know how to face them and how to handle them. So. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. We're getting really close to the end of time here.
Okay.
I wanted to open up one more time and just see if anyone else had any lingering questions about asynchronous tutoring, tutor training, anything like that. If you do, please stick it into the chat or feel free to unmute yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping track of it ourselves and using our own tutors and my having absolute 100% transparent insight into what the staff is doing makes a whole big difference in the way that we approach the process and the faculty and students. And that to me is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That transparency is super key. It makes sense. It doesn't look like there's any further questions. So I'm going to go ahead and direct us all to get back into the main room. We do have, again, that like 5-minute buffer, but I just put into the chat the link for the other webinar or the other Zoom room. And the password, as we know, is partner, capital P. So we'll migrate back into that main room for some quick closing remarks and to hand out our door prizes. So, please be excited for that.
Aviva, and you're going to post all of our materials someplace or other where everybody can access them, correct?
Yes. So immediately following the conference, we'll send out 2 emails. So the first email will have all of your materials and the different handouts from and presentations from the different presenters for these sessions and for the Upswing track sessions as well. And then in a couple days, once we kind of cut everything together so that it's not 7 hours of video all at once, we'll also send out the recordings with links to the different sessions so that you can go back and review those.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one other thing I want to mention real quick before we log off, because I just now thought of it. We send out a series of reports daily, one in the morning, one around noonish, which I'm about to do in a few minutes, and one in the evening, alerting all tutors as to what's in the queues. Again, this is also where a little bit of tutor supervision does come in handy, especially if a submission has been sitting there 12 to 16 hours and nobody's picked it up yet. When that happens, we pretty much have to, tell these tutors, look, this is a priority. It's growing whiskers. You gotta get the paper now. So that's another way that Deborah and I keep, tutors informed as to what's going on in Upswing and what needs to be taken care of.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank y'all.
Yes, we really appreciate you guys.
Mm-hmm. All righty.
All right, everyone go ahead and click over to that other link and then we'll start that in just a minute. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.